Welcome to the video. I recently put out an original score for a scoring competition, just like a minute and 15-second clip. And I thought that I would just run through kind of my approach to this, the reason that I did what I did, and then go through my set and some of the stuff that I did and some of the instruments that I use and techniques. I thought that would be a fun thing to do. So let's get into it. Okay, so here is my set. An Ableton Live. I use Ableton. It's what I've been using for the longest amount of time. It's the DAW that I'm the most comfortable with, that I feel like I can work the fastest in. I also use a decent amount of Ableton stock stuff, one of which I use for one of the sounds in here, kind of one of the main sounds. So it's my preferred DAW. I like it a lot. I like to use it. And it's really not too bad for film scoring once you kind of get the hang of some of the little things. Jumping right in, you can see it's not a very big set. It's not a very long piece of music. It's actually pretty simple, and I actually put it together like pretty fast. And for this clip, what I did is I kind of sat down. I kind of just watched the clip initially, took in all the sounds, took in all the visuals, and kind of took my approach really off of one viewing of kind of what I wanted to do. And this video starts off pretty simple. It's just like a lot of landscape images of this like beautiful glacier lake, just really beautiful, awe-inspiring images of these really amazing places. And there's a nice like wind going on in the background. And so that was kind of like the first thing that I noticed and wanted to play off of. I'll kind of just show you the beginning of that. And then right there, the creator of the video actually does like a little voiceover, which was also kind of like another driver for the kind of music that I wanted to do. It starts off, he says, "I've been drifting for days. I kind of lost count." And then he talks about how he's lived in this place his whole life. And when he sees people go out on the water, he doesn't usually see them come back. So there's really this implication that he's out on the water and that he is in a state of most likely not being rescued, not being able to come back to his normal life, and he's most likely gonna die out in this water. And I think it would be pretty obvious to kind of go more the horror kind of thriller route with this, something a little bit darker, a little more mysterious, almost a little terrifying, because that is kind of a terrifying situation to imagine yourself in. The line that kind of really stood out to me and that kind of defined the way that I went with this music was when he said, "I lived here my whole life." I wanted to capture that personal relationship that he had with the water. And then so that combined with images for me, these awe-inspiring images. I think anytime that you live somewhere, you really learn how to adapt to that area, that environment, and you really get a respect for the area. When he's talking about how he's seen people go out on the water, he doesn't usually see them come back. I feel like he has this almost respect and almost this understanding that is holding back a panic, because he has this relationship with this area and he understands the power of it and he has this respect. And so it was almost like this, this is a very unfortunate situation for me, but I respect the power of this area. I respect the power of this water. And that was a really beautiful relationship to me. And so that's the reason why I didn't go necessarily super dark. I did go pretty dramatic and pretty melancholy with a nice build at the end, but I didn't want to go into something super dark. So with that all said, let's just jump right into kind of the instrumentation. So the first thing for me was this pad right here. And this pad is a pad that I kind of designed using Ableton's Wavetable synth. Again, I really like Ableton stock stuff. I've been using Ableton for a pretty long time, and I used Operator to pretty much build out all of my sounds. Operator is a great synth that Ableton has. Wavetable is a newer one that they added in the last couple of versions, and it is a really cool synth. It's almost a little intimidating with how many waveforms you can actually do. It really does feel like it's a one-stop shop for synthesizers in terms of kind of being able to do whatever you want it to do. And so I kind of have some macros here that enable me to make it adjusted to whatever I'm doing. Right now, it has like this really slow attack, just really lush. And then I'm also using the Valhalla Supermassive delay reverb-ish plugin, which is free, by the way. I definitely recommend it. And that really just makes it sound super big. But the cool thing about this synth is I can throw the attack and open up the filter, and now you got this like really cool, just kind of big, snappy attack. I can do basses, I can do leads, I can do all kinds of stuff. So I really like this sound. This is, I call it massive pad. I kind of just have it as like my go-to pad for anything. And so that's how I started this one. I started it with just some really simple pad swells. And I wanted to use the wind because, as you heard, there's this wind going on, and it's a nice sounding wind, and it's pretty loud, and it is kind of, to me, part of the environment that you're seeing. I wanted to utilize that. And so I didn't want my intro to be super obtrusive. I wanted it to kind of blend in with that wind sound. So I also wanted to do this kind of like chimey kind of sound, which is this crystals right here. And I believe this was made with Spitfire Labs, one of their free instruments as well. So definitely check those out. What I did was I recorded it an octave higher, and then I ended up warping it in Ableton and doing a repitch and stretched it out twice as long, which lowers it an octave also in pitch. And so that way I was able to use the audio form and kind of move it around as much as I needed to and reverse some of the aspects of it. And that just creates this nice like chimey sound. I also have this echo on here all the way on the wet and ping pong, just to really create this nice stereo sound to surround you with it. And so that's how the song starts. It starts off with just that pad and that little crystal chimey sound. And the next thing I knew I wanted to do is I wanted to have a piano play the chords of the pad. For this piano, I wanted it to have a lot of character. I wanted it to be earthy and organic sounding. I don't know, that's a terrible way to describe it, but that's essentially what I was looking for. And there's a lot of pianos that can accomplish that, but a piano that I really like, it's a contact instrument from Native Instruments. It's called Una Corda, and this thing is kind of crazy. It can do so much stuff you wouldn't tell by just the basic interface here, but once you jump in, you see you can set different fabrics between the hammers. You can add harmonics. I have a little bit of this reverse going just to kind of make the notes kind of sound a little bit longer. And then mechanical sounds, ambient, like a nice like room hiss. And then you can have a pianist, which is like moving around on the chair and like breathing occasionally. It's really pretty insane. And then you have all these other things that you can do to it to make it just sound like anything. But I wanted that fabric-y sound, that felty sound. So that's what this piano sounds like here. And I'm going to turn the reverb off so you can hear it dry. It's gorgeous. But there's the sound when keys on, off, pedal. You hear that little pedal lift. It just sounds beautiful. And then there's the end. It does this little arpeggiation. And there's like squeaks in there and everything. It's a beautiful sound. But what I also wanted was I wanted it to kind of sound like it was in the middle of a big room. I didn't want it to sound like it was mic'd super close. And so I threw this Neoverb on here from Isotope. And I kind of just got this plugin and really I used it a lot already, but I haven't really messed with it that much. I kind of just load it up and just move a couple of things around. And as you can see, my dry wet is pretty hot here. Back to that arpeggiation. Yeah, that sounds good. And so really it's those three things are really kind of the anchor to this song. And then I also have a horn section, a small horn section, and a string section, as well as some percussion. And then there are some synths going on here. And so this synthesizer, I called it the synth. It's actually my Behringer DeepMind 6. I do have a hardware synth that I like to use when I can. And I threw it through some overdrive pedals. And so I have kind of like this really dirty sound, which is this. And then I have just the regular sound without that. And as you can hear, they are split left and right. I wanted to do that on purpose to kind of create this nice stereo image for that. And then I also recorded it through a reverb pedal that I have, but it kind of creates this like organy sound. And so if you do all three of those together, and that's just like a nice wall of synth. And that's exactly what I wanted it to be. And it fits in nice. And then I have this big old bass, is what I call it. My go-to synth bass is the Monarch. It's a reactor instrument from Native Instruments. It's modeling a Moog bass synth, and it really is just, I don't know, it sounds so good. It sounds ginormous. You can really do a lot of things with it as far as it being a really dynamic bass or even lead sound. And I have it called Big Old Bass because that's what it sounds like. Just big and nasty and okay. These are just some little samples that I have that kind of go through the build. It's this downshifter, but they're both kind of doing, one's higher, one's lower. And then this nice little, ooh. And I'll show you kind of later on what that sounds like in the build, because I think it sounds really cool and it adds a lot. And that's going to lead me to a good point. I strayed away from using samples for the longest time. It was this sense of pride of being able to create every sound that you had in your head. And then you get to this point where you realize there's already so much good stuff out there that you can use that's going to sound exactly the way that you wanted it to, maybe even better, and you're going to be able to pull it up way faster, and it's going to leave you way more time to do other things. It might even inspire you to do something else. So get some samples. They're so cheap these days to grab a nice big pack of samples and just start messing around with them. They're a great way to just inspire you to create stuff. And so that moves us on to really just the orchestral section, as well as the percussion, but let's jump into the orchestral session first. Basic strings, and for me, for all of my orchestral stuff, I use the BBC Symphony Orchestra Core Edition from Spitfire Audio. This thing is amazing, and when I was running through trying to get the best bang for my buck with orchestral libraries, there's a couple that I was going back and forth with, and this one doesn't include as much as some of the other ones. You don't get any solo instruments, you don't get a choir, nothing like that. But it was just when I would hear this pack, this library, it was so inspiring to me and it made me want to make music. And I was like, you know what, at the end of the day, I can learn this and make it sound like all the other libraries. What's important is which one actually makes me want to work. Which one do I want to work with? And so I'm using the BBC Symphony Orchestra Core Edition for all of my sounds. First and second violin, viola, cello, bass. So the full string section, and then French horns, trumpets, tenor trombone, a trombone, and this is actually a tuba. I just didn't label it correctly. And I'm just going to play all the orchestral stuff together so you can kind of hear how beautiful that sounds. Comes in nice and gently in the beginning. To me, it's the low horns. The brass sounds so good in Spitfire stuff. And then there's the legato slide on the strings. The way they worked in the legato patches. Like, listen to this. It's those little things that just help make it sound real and make it feel real. And that's so important. I know it's like the most important thing to Spitfire is that it sounds like a real orchestra, and that it tricks your brain and it tricks mine, and that's all I could care for. All right, and last but not least, we're going to move on to the percussion, and it's really simple. It's just a couple of big hits, and I'm actually using another Spitfire library for this. It's one of their originals, which I highly recommend looking into those. They're all $30, and they all sound incredible. This is their cinematic percussion one, and it's really just like a bunch of big hits. you know, nice big rooms. You can adjust all that, but it's just a nice big sound. I have the distortion turned up a little bit. I'm taking that sound and I'm turning it into, it just sounds like a freaking gunshot, right? And so what's happening is I have Ableton's drum bus. This is kind of a secret weapon audio effect. It's kind of like a saturator, compressor, limiter, all kinds of stuff thrown into one little thing. That's why it's called a drum bus. And it is great on drums, but honestly, I use it on all kinds of stuff just to make it sound bigger, to kind of help really bring the levels up, bring the presence up for something. And so as you can see, I have the drive turned up to 50%. I have a nice hard distortion on there, compression. I'm controlling the transients a little bit, a ton of crunch, a little bit of boom at 90 hertz. And let's just hear what just the drum bus is doing. So this is without the drum bus. That sounds cool. I just love it so much. And this is the 1073, Shep's 1073 from Waves. I really like using this thing for distortion, actually, for color. And so as you can see, I have the drive turned up a little bit. I do have a decent amount of EQ going on, but I have a lot of distortion. And this is a little trick that I recently found out about, how you can kind of make a dry wet knob for any effect on Ableton. And it's really pretty great. You get basically two different things in a chain, and you can adjust it like this. I highly recommend looking up this technique. I'm not going to go into it right now, but it allows me to adjust the dry and wetness of this plugin. So if we go drum bus and then we throw on this color, it just sounds nasty. And then I have the SSL channel from Waves as well, doing some more EQ to control a lot of that, and then also some compression to just really bring out the hit. And then I like to use Replica. It's a delay from Native Instruments, but I like to use it in the diffusion mode with the in milliseconds for the delay time, but I really am using it as a pre-delay, and it sounds like a reverb. A lot of people know this about Replica, but the diffusion mode is more like a reverb, and so it just really helps blow up the space, makes it sound ginormous. It just sounds huge. And then I have that same sound, I recorded it and I reversed it to just create this kind of build. Sounds pretty crazy. All right, and so that's pretty much the whole set. I didn't want to just play it through because I want you to go check out the video. You can check out the link in the description. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just play it from the build, and you can kind of listen back and see what you think, how everything kind of just turned out. I really like this. And like I said, I was able to build it pretty quickly. And that was just from having some great sounds that I'm really inspired by, and knowing some sounds that I can go to, that I can turn to when I want to create something super quick. And so I hope that you liked this rundown. This kind of stuff is cool for me. It's just cool to look back at what I did and kind of learn, and also to just run through it. Maybe it can help you on some of your endeavors and some of your creation. So yeah, thanks for watching, and enjoy the little piece of music.
I usually don't come back.